Well, we will officially come to order. This is the Eastham Recycling Committee meeting. The meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Approval of the June minutes. I had sent them out. Approved.
Second.
Thank you. That's easy. All right, we'll do our reports. Climate Action Committee, Gary.
Climate Action Committee is really bearing down, preparing the final version of Eastham's climate action plan, including taking a look at resilience as well, that we can do to prevent the highest level of damage in case of storm.
That makes sense.
So they're now working with the town in the form of Paul Lack, who is also working with not only the Climate Action Committee, but he's working with the Conservation Committee. Also, hi Carrie.
Hi Carrie.
Carrie's my guest today. Carrie Parcell, I think everyone knows Carrie.
Hello.
So they're working with the Climate Action Climate Action Committee, and Conservation, Strategic Planning Committee, collectively put together a plan that they all agree on for Eastham. Theoretically, it will be ready by the end of September. And I'll present it to you.
So Gary has been our liaison from the Recycling Committee to the Climate Action Committee, but now that Gary is officially not on the Recycling Committee, the committee should decide if you would like to have a liaison if someone wants to go to those meetings, or be in touch with them to kind of follow what's going on. So I put that out for consideration to the committee. Swap shop, John.
We are the victim of our own success.
Usual.
Last Saturday, I didn't show up because my shoulders got some issues, and I understand it was the busiest day for like 6 years. The line to get into the transfer station started at Arnold's. And it's creating another problem, which is that we have impatient people driving really badly to the point where we're ready to tear people out of cars. And we've realized Linda yelled at somebody who she knows who was driving badly and impatiently. And we decided, I don't know if we have any power, but we decided if you do behave like that, you don't get to shop at the swap shop. And if you drive badly, we'll call the police on you. But we are so successful that the traffic patterns are really out of control.
Now, do you think, I saw on the website that now not the swap shop, but the landfill will be open Fridays now. Will that help alleviate some of that crazy?
I have no idea because, well, people are only supposed to park in the designated places, and they park on the left side as you're making the turn, which the transfer station really doesn't want them to do. I wasn't there Saturday, but when I came in Sunday, it was just, it was a lunatic fringe.
I don't think the CRATA is for the recycling committee. It's for the swap shop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what.
You think that's what drives it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and everybody that has friends from out of town, all the friends want to go to the swap shop. So literally we're traffic directors now because people are so crazy. When people back up, we have to walk out and stop traffic so we don't have collisions.
John, one thing you may have already thought about this is to talk to John Ruffley or reach out to Kim St. Albans, even though she's the water.
Well, she's who I was talking to about the new swap shop, but
okay, because I mean,
but they're so undermanned at the dump to begin with.
Well, no, just to kind of be on the same page about how to manage this traffic.
Yes, yes,
You
because his guys come out when they can, but they have work to do. I mean, it's a bunch of knuckleheads coming in. I will call him and ask him, I don't know we have any real power, but we fully intend to ban people that can't behave well. Whether we have that power, I don't care. I don't want anybody getting run over or or anything like that, because people are literally
No,
behaving that
yeah.
badly, and you think that's what's driving it.
I do, because, I mean, just based on where people are parking.
Yeah, Joe Rossetti's Facebook presence has really picked us up another notch. So anyway, so that's what's going on in
The
the transfer
day
station.
I was there, I think it was 2 Saturdays ago, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
I think half of the people were going to the swap shop, but half were mad at those people and wanted to get around them.
Right, because
They-
since
they
you
just
can't
want-
only do
but
your
you can only-
garbage on Saturday, Sunday,
Yes.
so
and
yes,
that
maybe
is a
the
non-
Friday will take some pressure off.
Anyway,
That,
I hope
would
it
be
does
nice.
for safety reasons.
yes, absolutely, because that was never on our agenda,
Yeah,
and now it is.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why they suddenly decided to do the Fridays, but.
I think
it's
desperation,
was a good decision.
but I mean, they're still very shorthanded, so
Yeah.
I think they just decided they had it.
I know in terms of volunteers, you're kind of stuck to the Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday. Is there any,
When we
is there
open,
any thought of changing that? So maybe a Sunday is a swap shop close day, so people just want to get rid of their. Just an idea. I mean, I know that you're probably.
Well, but you know, the irony is that when I first started volunteering, our hours were like 9 to 2. And then after the pandemic, it went 9 to 1. And then we all decided that, especially during the summer, that we were so exhausted after 3 hours of nonstop moving inventory around that we didn't want to go to the old hours.
Right.
I can bring up another day, but
I think the issue in the.
Just to
summer-
balance the people that want to do trash, and
Yeah.
people that want to do swap shop during the summer.
although
Maybe that's not.
we're 10 to 1. I mean, you can go before 10, you can go after 1. So I think she's right.
Yeah, I
Which
think it's
butler?
unfortunately, it's the turnover. It's the turnover of people who are here for the summer, it just makes it so, just the volume is so crazy.
No, it totally isn't. So, but other than that, we're doing great business.
Excellent. Always good.
Any movement on the shed?
Mm-hmm.
Any movement on the shed?
I did call up Pine Harbor to get an estimate. And Nick, who's one of our new volunteers, who also is a contractor, told me that I went about asking Pine Harbor all the wrong questions and that we should really get a bare bones building. And that we'll do a bunch of sweat equity stuff ourselves. Because I was specking, 24 by 24 building with rigid insulation in the floor and the sides. And he says, as long as we get up the bare building from Pine Harbor, that's the hardest part of it. So he seems to think that we can farm out or just do a bunch of stuff ourselves to up the efficiency of the building and stuff. So it's not as hot or cold as the old one is in the extreme seasons.
Do you run into any problems with the town?
No, and what I discussed with John and what's her name? St. Albans? Kim. If we don't take any town money to fund the new building, then we don't have to deal with a lot of the issues of bidding and all those things. Which will in a lot of ways make it easier. I'm still a little confused about, who owns the building, who manages it, and we threw together a charter last year, but it doesn't say who technically is in charge or.
It's probably important. For
Somebody came up the other day and
insurance and liability purposes to figure that out.
somebody came up like weeks ago and said, "Oh, I really want to volunteer, da 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 da." And, but her behavior in the swap shop wasn't terribly nice, so nobody on the board team wanted to include her. She goes, "Well, I'll apply to the town." I said, "Yeah, have a nice day." So we're this strange kind of benevolent dictatorship because we're the people that show up and do the work, and we hire people that work hard, and we have fired people, or Linda has fired people who have not told the line or just been behaved badly.
Yeah,
But I wonder, like, who's in charge? If, we're this amorphous thing.
it's probably one of those things that has happened over time,
Yeah,
but now would be a good time to clarify all that.
but before we do a building campaign
Yeah.
and sort of up the stakes, no, I I lose sleep at night trying to figure out what we're doing because everybody in the swap shop has decided I'm the leader now. And I'm like,
Very good.
so that's what's going on.
Regarding the building itself, I understand from, Amy Ekman, she told me a long time ago, but when this one was built.
Yeah.
It was almost built entirely by, volunteer, men and
Right.
women who were tradespeople that wanted to volunteer their time, specialties that they thought would be appropriate for building the.
I've thought of that and, the ongoing issues that we have as towns on the Cape with having housing for tradespeople and everything else makes me a little reticent about doing that past the point. Because the swap shop is something very specific. I mean, it solves part of a problem of solid waste, but, some people have brought that up. I'm sort of more, let's get some grants and some other stuff. I need to finish this conversation with Nick as far as how much, I'll kick in sweat equity labor, but, how much of that we can do and what needs to be on the local table as opposed to buying harbors.
Are grants that you are familiar with?
Yeah, they were offering grants for universal waste sheds and swap shops this year, and I would check with Kim. I don't have my laptop on me, otherwise I just would have busted it open real quick, but I would check with Kim because she's the one that I work on the grant process with.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she had asked for funds for the swap shop.
Through the grants, not,
Through the grants.
right,
So I would check with her to make sure, because now those grant funds are probably not going to be released until the fall, and you can't spend money until the document has been signed, like the
Right.
grant contract has been executed.
right.
But I'm pretty sure she had mentioned the swap shop and applying for that grant.
And I've heard that from other people that have specialty in other fundraising. I have a couple of angels as it were that have offered to start going out to people with too much money to get donations. But I'm reticent to do too much fundraising until I get sort of a target number for what this will cost.
Right.
So that's what's holding up my ability to go forward.
Okay.
But those are the two things that are on our agenda.
And if she did apply for it and the town does receive it, I think it's up to $6,000. So even if you're looking at a building that's 15,000, you can apply that whole 6,000 to do that when
Right.
you have your figures.
Okay.
But
I'm
that's something
figuring
she
that
did
building
apply
more would be 50 to 75 all told, but
Mhm.
that's winter and summer use and, decent insulation and some other things, because I figure we only want to do this once. We'll need a
Right.
handicap ramp, there are a bunch of finesses that I need to write down and get reviewed by everybody to make sure that I'm not forgetting it. So, but thank you.
Yeah.
I'll check back with you.
I can't recall if she did or not. So.
Yeah.
John, thank you for spearheading that whole effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
When you're standing in that building in the summer or
Yeah.
in the winter.
Right, it would be a lot nicer when the new
Yeah,
one
it's
is,
easier to motivate yourself.
So we've got a couple of big items to discuss. The first is to vote on our new co-chairs. Unfortunately, Alicia has had to step down. She was hoping to do it, but she's not going to be able to. So what I need is another volunteer to co-chair with Andrew.
I'll keep them coming.
Okay, John, thank you, that's great. So I would like to, how do we officially do this? I would like to propose John and Andrew as our new co-chairs. I'd like to have a vote from the current members.
Canvas.
The first,
Second, first.
all in favor?
Oh, I thought you made
Okay,
it.
thank you. So officially, your duties will start August 1st.
Okay.
Andrew,
I've sent you a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, John, I will send you the same stuff tomorrow.
Okay.
And then if you just have 5 or 10 minutes, we'll chat briefly at the
Okay.
end of this meeting. What I will do tomorrow is let the town know you're the new chair starting August 1st. I will also send the agenda for August. And the reason I'm mentioning that is if the agenda is not sent a week before the meeting,
Can't hold the meeting.
you cannot hold a meeting. So just, anyway, I'll talk to you more about all the official stuff, but it's not a big deal. I just try to do it like, we have the meeting on Tuesday, I do it the next day. In my
Right,
mind,
just
I don't
so it's out the
forget,
way.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's great. And then I'll also get the notes from Alicia, pass them around and send those. So that part will be done. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, great. Well, that was really easy. So the other thing, I think probably we want to have the longest conversation about sort of next steps for the committee. But let's just talk for a minute about Windmill Weekend. I know I was not at the last meeting and it sounds like there was discussion about not using the town tent and table, but before I canceled that, I wanted to be 100% sure that was what you intended.
Well, I think it was all determined by the kind of location. I mean, everybody was unhappy with the location of the tent last year, so there was discussion about, well, we can't get one under the tent, that's we don't have it on our own.
But we weren't sure at all about
Well, we need a
how
tent.
much, how much
We-
choice we had.
Yeah,
If we
The
don't,
choice will be whatever they offer as the alternative.
right.
So,
Could be better, could be worse.
well, my guess is that last year they had the second row of it, they had 2 rows of vendors parallel to Route 6. You know, mostly it was the perimeter, but then they had an extra row. My guess is it would be there, but because we're late in the game, usually they make these decisions in April and May. Like you say, what you know, anyway, so we would probably be at the end of whatever that is my guess. If they say yes.
Remember,
Yeah.
Oh, we need,
Well, that's your-
we need a tent and tables.
Do you have it?
I would offer tent, but the Painters Guild is going until September, so.
I mean, right, so I guess there would be, you'd have to bring table chairs and if you wanted something to cover for the sun. So if somebody has all that and you all are willing to do that, I'm just, before I cancel, I
Yeah,
don't want
no,
to,
it's-
because once I cancel, that's.
Can't
I
go,
mean-
change your minds. If it's gonna be worse, I don't know. What do you?
I don't think it'll be worse, it's just you'd have to bring everything, that's all,
Yeah.
take it away.
and take it away. And that's not hard, it's not that many people there when you would go to set up, but it's just,
But another question is, what would we feature?
Yeah, that was the other discussion we had.
Well, the only difference would be in where we are in terms of the flow. Because we didn't
Right,
like
the
being in
flow
the center,
would
we
be
figured
better.
people would work their way around the perimeter and we'd get more traffic, but. We can make more noise.
And what would we do with the table to attract attention?
Yeah, that was like I said, that was
We
what
had
we were
a
talking
long
about.
conversation.
yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of good
Maybe
ideas
more
about
just handing out
games.
flyers, or do you want to have some kind of a contest, or?
We talked about games and activities, I thought. I don't
Yeah, that was,
remember exactly what it was.
I-
Yeah,
The idea was to bring some toys and things from the swap shop and maybe see if the high school had
Oh, right,
a club with the.
Do the clothing.
clothes.
that's what it was. I was like, I knew it was something like you were
And maybe
recycling stuff.
A few games that had to do with recycling.
Yeah,
yes,
That's right.
the,
Some kind of cause or.
they were going, last summer. The high school students that were here were going to the Orleans. uh, Saturday morning farmer's market. If somebody went there, you could see if they were there and talk to them, because it's probably different people this year since they graduated.
at the farmer's market.
They were at the Orleans Farmers Market last year, a couple times.
I mean, I go to the New Orleans Farmer's
You never
Market.
seen them?
Once in a while, I see some racks of clothing there. I think that's what you're talking about.
Well, and this was specifically the Nauset High School group.
Oh, okay. And then there's a cart with like refillable for refillable
Yes, and
containers.
she has her store, Green Refill, that's in, Brewster.
Gotcha. But I don't know
Anyway,
if
I'm not sure how to contact that group over the summer, but I think that's a good idea.
Well, we look at anybody over the summer, but.
Yeah.
I can send the email.
Okay.
Just,
I'll
it'll just sit stagnant and have to
Sit until
read
they
it
come
until
back.
September, yeah,
Yeah.
because the clubs won't even start until the end of September, beginning of October.
Yes.
You had something about paper making.
Yeah, I said another way we can draw people because it'll be hot. I thought paper making because it'll get wet. It'd be nice
Well,
to
I will
cool off.
defer to the new chairs
But
about.
yeah, so I can't figure out how to
all this.
blend the paper safely anyway. So that's like the one step I can't figure out. I can do everything else. Usually you have to use a blender to recycle the paper, and I don't want people feeding their hands in the blender.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I thought about doing it like a manufacturing situation, but then getting an inline blender is not gonna be easy for me to get, like shipping it here and borrowing it from somebody. So I was like, that's kind of where that fell off the tracks. We had better ideas, I thought, anyway. paper.
Well, I think you thought maybe about, what's the game, you throw the little bean bag, and there could be some games with the toys.
Cornhole.
Somebody has one of those sets, or something to attract people over. I think were some of the ideas that.
Do like boomerang bags, like make your own reusable bag. If you have the materials, a lot of people love that. Wellfleet does it a lot. Make your own bags. You can do it with like old pillowcases, old birdseed bags, old feed bags, old other pieces of textiles, linens,
So
like
we'll
that.
just be gathering some of
Yeah, so
that.
you'd have like a template or a pattern, and then you just have to have enough for, yeah, scissors and stuff like that.
That's a great idea.
People
But
like.
you need a sewing machine or you just cut what's there?
You can just cut what's there. I mean, sometimes there's a couple people with sewing machines, so when somebody puts their template together, you can have somebody sew it for them. Just for safety reasons if you want, or maybe there's an age limit to use the sewing machine, like you have to be like older than 13 or something. I don't know what you would want to do, but boomerang bags are a really fun thing because you can make them out of all sorts of materials.
That's a cool idea.
So you can go like an animal feed store and stuff like that, and you get like old birdseed bags, things like
What I
that.
don't know, but I can ask, is about electricity. So in other words, if you did want to bring.
Oh, yeah.
To what, I mean, they're, I don't know, other than, I mean, there's electricity in the windmill. But I don't know how any of that is, anyway, but that's a good,
Well, there has to be a way to plug things in because the bands that are there on Monday night.
yes, probably at the band.
Yeah, but probably at the bandstand. I don't know where else there's a, I would think the only places for power are at the windmill and the bandstand. There might be a hidden one somewhere else. We could ask.
See how long of a power cord I have.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you have to press it. So that nobody trips over it.
I know, I'll make it orange, I'll just say.
But I think it's an interesting idea to explore,
Yeah,
so, or something like that, a craft, something.
Work with the library as well, do like a book swap, like a mini book swap. People can bring something that they've already read and take something new.
and plus I got part of the book.
All right, well, if you guys can spearhead that and finalize that all, I will, when I email the woman, so let me just clarify, do you want me, and I just don't remember her name off the top of my head. I will CC you so you have her information, and when she replies back, do you want to ask for another space?
It sounds like we were gonna go with the space we get,
Yeah.
right?
I don't think we're prepared to.
I
use
feel
space.
like I'm not confident we can scare up everything we would need to make sure we have a space and activities. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I think once we have things established, maybe then it's like, okay, well, now we just gotta acquire tents and chairs.
Well, Lee's not here, but I will volunteer her. Especially since she's not here. She's very good at going and talking to people, and if, so she might be willing to volunteer, but she might be willing to volunteer to shepherd people. Like, especially if there's games out in front or.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
if somebody wants to make cornhole, I can make bean bags
Yeah.
pretty
then
quickly and
kind of-
easily. And then like we have bean bags for that. I can make a little recycling bag or something. So,
So did you think that the kids in the school would not be
when's Windmill
organized
weekend?
enough yet?
It's the 7th.
It's not deep enough.
It's Saturday.
So
the-
kids
the-
don't even start school.
Yeah, they will, yeah, exactly.
Oh.
It'll be too soon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
unless there was unless you ran into somebody who was already
A go-getter.
around or here, but
Yeah, that would be.
we don't know who that is, so,
Is this with
You know,
Nauset
we're-
Regional High School? Is
sorry,
this
yeah.
Nauset Regional High
Mhm.
School? What about Luke Simpson? Doesn't he run an environmental club there?
Yes, but they don't check their emails that much in the center.
Good.
And we don't start school until the day after Labor Day. Tuesday or Wednesday.
I mean, I kind of don't blame him, but. Okay.
We ran into. this
I will
last year.
send you though, the information, I think one of the women we talked to last year was a junior, again, probably not reading emails, but I'll send you that information just on the wild chance that she or somebody replies, so.
Okay, yeah, I mean, anything, any leads.
Yeah, so Windmill weekend is Saturday, the 7th. And I will double check, because I can't remember if it starts at 9 or 10. Come an hour early for setting up. And all of that, but I'll double check on the time.
And I still work on Saturdays. So the whole September stuff.
Sure.
Well, we have a good 35 minutes left of our meeting, which is wonderful, because one of the reasons Gary proposed asking Gary to come, and I agreed, was to help us brainstorm about ideas for the committee going forward for this year. I know one thought that I think it's a great idea, which is to look at the current kind of mission statement, which is very much focused on recycling, which is positive. But maybe to broaden that, we had talked about sustainability as a theme. And we don't have to come up with all of that, but we could kind of, do a round robin or just throw ideas and things. And that might be one thing, John and Andrew, that you want to help the committee move forward on and look at that charge.
I had to charge him at purse earlier, but I don't have it.
One of the things I just want to say, and I'm sure you realize this anyway, which is don't take out recycling and compost, don't take all of that out completely, only in the sense that we do have some responsibilities with the DPW around the swap shop, around the recycling.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my
composting.
questions.
So, but that fits very nicely under sustainability. And I do occasionally send Kim St. Albans some information, and I'll share that with you. It's not a lot, but just when she's applying for the grants, there's information she gets from us. So we want to continue that. But to what degree we want to be involved can be a TBD, but just we need to maintain that relationship as a town committee with DPW. Otherwise, it's really kind of open, and Amy Ekman, our select board representative and member for us, is supportive of us looking at sustainability as, sort of a broader thing.
I just wanted to say that, Carrie, for those of you who don't know, she's our, recycling guru. She gets, works with all the municipalities, all the, transfer stations and DPWs, and so I thought it would be a good idea to have Carrie, because I think she's creative and she can think of things that might be, something that's significant enough for us to get behind, and at the same time do something special for the town. I know we talked about solid waste and getting those numbers down. I know you have some controversy.
I know last year we were talking about trash haulers that were dumping at our transfer station, combining recycling and solid waste. And then I know somebody sent us an email. Did we ever resolve this issue?
I brought it up to Amy just recently.
Yeah.
Because
How's she
of the
doing?
emails. Okay.
Okay.
She may have to have Amy had an injury to her eye. And that wasn't an accident and had to have surgery and may or may not have to have a second surgery. So
Okay.
she looked good and she was in good spirits, but I
Good.
saw her when we interviewed Gwen. Which just anyway, she looked good.
Okay. Sorry.
Gwyneth will be joining the committee, I think officially very soon. We interviewed her officially. The official work is done. We're just waiting for the select board to give the seal of approval, which should happen very soon. So welcome to the recycling committee. And officially that'll be true about, I'm sure, by the time the next meeting occurs. And there was a second person who expressed interest, but they were not able to commit to coming to the meetings. So we declined to interview them. So there will be, when I step down at the end of this month, another position. So keep your, think about somebody else if you know, or hear of somebody who would like to join. Yeah, okay, so ideas.
Yes. I think, I wanted to start with our solid waste because our numbers are high. And I know it's controversial for you,
Oh,
John,
yeah.
because you think what they divided it by was just
Well, there was a question of number of people that have
I'm sure it was.
dump stickers and then people that come in otherwise. And so it's kind of hard to tell exactly what the numbers are.
Yes, and then, right.
The other implication being we're the worst town on the Cape and necessarily gonna wear that.
Carrie has the numbers, she keeps the numbers.
Well,
Right.
then I got sidetracked. Well, I'll just finish my thought, which was, I did bring it up to Amy about the commercial vehicles dumping recycling into the dumpsters and not
Right.
doing the recycling.
Right.
And she brought it up to Jackie and I've not heard back.
Right.
So
I
that
don't
is,
want us to get in trouble again.
yes, I know, but I think it's an important issue that could be looked into further if the town would support that effort.
What kind of
So
trouble?
So if you go up to
one
the
of the-
DEP chain,
it did.
it did, yeah, they sent me an email asking if I had heard anything, which I hadn't because nobody had directly reported it to me. But just for all of your knowledge, I'm not a regulatory department, I'm a
Right.
service department.
Yeah,
So unless I see something that's, egregiously imminent on any sort of physical harm to the environment, human or animal health, then I probably won't say too much, but I do relay messages. So it went to my department and then went up to the commercial side. The email has swirled a couple of times to my desk. I told them that when I spoke with Kim and John that I hadn't heard anything further, but apparently there's an open investigation. But not in the sense that the town of Eastham is the target, it's the haulers that are coming in. But there is a transfer of ownership when it comes to solid waste. So it's the property and the responsibility of the transfer of ownership. So so anything at a curb for like an owner, like on a curbside, so some private hauler comes in and picks up at the curb, that resident still owns the trash generated until it is transferred into the truck. Now it's the hauler's job to manage those material streams. So if they're going to the town of Eastham and the town is allowing them to tip contaminated materials without fees or enforcement, or they're just allowing it to occur, now it's the town of Eastham's generation. And then once the town of Eastham collects it and takes the contamination to CMAS to where the waste energy facility is, once they allow them to tip it, then that becomes their property. So there's a transfer of ownership, through the sort of chain. Same when a resident goes with a sticker and takes a trash bag with everything in it and puts it into the compactor. It's the same thing. Once they tip it and the town allows it, now it becomes the town's.
But
trash.
the other issue was I know when we used to rent, that if you wanted to do the right thing, you paid the trash hauler extra to get a recycling container in it, was single stream. And then the question was, what happens at that point? Whether they actually honor that contract that they're charging extra for a recycling container, where do they do their sorting, or does it just get commingled? And that was the question.
Right, so there is an obligation for haulers, just like there's an obligation for municipal transfer stations to adhere to the waste ban. So
Right.
those are CMR 310.19, whatever, right?
Right.
So there are waste bans that people are supposed to adhere to, even at the residential level. There's just no enforcement at residential levels. It goes to the haulers and it goes to the regulated facilities for operation. That's where they're doing their inspections. So if there's no obligation for a landlord or a condo to say that we have to provide services or trash services. I mean, it bodes for them
No,
to
but
do
I mean
so.
that when the vendors get extra money for containers strictly for recycling,
And then
the
they're
question
done.
is whether they comply with that.
They should, but with the Board of Health that's permitting these haulers, then they need to have some sort of hauler regulations mandating recycling, and they would be the ones that provide enforcement and not necessarily rely on the limited resources of the state to come down here and do it for them.
Okay.
It should be sort of the onus of the town through the Board of Health or the DPW to have an inspection person or team or an enforcement coordinator.
Okay.
And again, those are grants that are available through DEP, so that you can use funds to help pay for a dedicated person for 10 hours, for 19 hours to go around and enforce at the curb or at the transfer station.
So it would require public health in collaboration with DPW or something like that
We
to
had bodies.
have someone there. Because, right, we hear this at least once a year. Someone sees a commercial truck dump everything instead of doing the sorting.
I watch it every time I go.
And
It's
you
the
see it every
same
time you go.
person I see
Okay.
doing it.
And so we,
And they do.
No,
get
it's
extra pay,
happening.
doesn't it?
but
Right.
whether there's going to be will to,
Is the waste from a commercial place or residential?
they're picking up at residential
Right.
and then dumping it at the dump.
They're
Is
just
any of them
coming-
apartment buildings? Because apartment buildings are technically commercial.
I
Yeah,
don't
but,
know.
but the bulk of it during the summer is.
It's from
is-
houses.
It's from houses.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out a way to legally make them culpable from a regulatory standpoint,
Yeah.
because when you're a commercial entity, you have cradle to grave responsibility for waste versus a residential. You could throw all the poison you want in your personal trash, and also disposal comes and dumps it, doesn't matter. But if I'm a business now, even if it's in my basement, I have a commercial responsibility of critical grade for the trash. So even if I dump that same poison in my personal trash, I'm not a commercial entity and I'm responsible for it. So in theory, you got the right lawyer, you could make an argument to lean on these companies to do the right thing when they pick up cash from commercial locations that are zoned commercially.
So I don't know about that issue. I think we've been assuming this is more of a,
This has been a
We're picking
residential issue for
the
us.
summer residence trash.
I got you,
and
okay, I'm just trying to think of a way to make them
Yeah,
all
and
responsible,
dumping
really
it
more than
all
trying to
into the
alleviate the
bins
issue.
and not doing any recycling, even though they're charging separate.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, like I
But-
said, you only person you
Yeah.
can really make culpable is you hire people to inspect everything or make them legally culpable
Yeah.
in some way that threatens them. Now, some of them will pull their business and then the others will just comply or eventually not comply.
But this sounds like to me an issue, if the committee wanted to continue to look into it, it's gone up the chain.
Yeah.
But that a meeting could be had with DPW, public
know
health.
If I'm a commercial, if I transfer trash to the site. Sorry, I'm having to see you.
Okay.
We all have them, John, so it's all right. You'll
Yeah.
think of it.
I'm just thinking with private hauler regulations, it puts out an equity of any hauler that operates. So the Board of Health is what puts out permits for haulers to operate in your community, right? Or
Right.
within that residential space. So if you have enforced adopted private hauler regulations, enforcement means that there's sort of a fee schedule. So there's, the first one might be
That was
warning
my question
letter.
about the fee schedule.
Yep, so the first one might be, you know, a resident complains that they saw, you said Nauset, right? So they dump.
I said not, I don't.
Oh,
understand.
sorry,
I
yeah.
said just mention,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
pick up my
just-
trash. Yeah, they
Hey,
pick up
Holly.
my trash. That's the
Yeah,
only reason.
they picked up mine at my condo in Chatham, so.
But is their contract, when they come in to dump, is it an open contract? Are they weighed? Is it counted per truckload?
It probably goes over your scale, and then there's a
It's-
commercial fee over the scale that the town charges, commercial haulers
Okay,
for that tipping fee.
Right.
Because the town is then responsible for the tipping fee going forward with that commercial waste. So there's a separate, also at the scale house, there should be two separate entities that monitors the tonnage of commercial waste that comes through and the tonnage of residential waste that comes through based on the number of stickers that are sold. So that's how you kind of divide the pounds per household per year.
right.
Is you look at the residential stickers for stickers only, because the second sticker is typically the same household. So you're looking at households. So
Right.
first sticker sales, and then you look at the tonnage that comes through of residential waste, not anything that goes over that scale.
Right.
And then that's how you find out how much your.
Also, that is
residents
how we
are-
are separated.
Yes,
Okay,
so that system works in Eastham, and as long as the person understands that reporting data point, you're
Right.
gonna get accurate information
okay.
mostly, right?
Right,
So, and this is an issue in Chatham. I mean, I live in Chatham. I was just in a meeting in Chatham before here, and Chatham has a very, very high pounds per household, but it's not an accurate data point in our data reference because they do separate over the scale with commercial waste because they have two haulers that they allow that are local in Chatham to come through. The problem is when the reporter reports it to me, he doesn't give me the separation. He just gives me the entire tonnage. And so that's not accurate for residential waste.
right.
So I'm not learning what the pounds per household is. It's falsely high.
Right, it's commingled data.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a separation. Eastham has a separation. Kim understands that when she fills out the surveys.
Okay.
But the best way is enforcement and having that private hauler regulation through the Board of Health. When you have these Board of Health regulations under solid waste, you say that there's mandatory recycling, that you have to provide bundled services, meaning you can't charge me extra that above and beyond what a trash can is separately for recycling. And that when
Oh.
there's a enforcement fee.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep, and it's for all generators, meaning you can't just decide who I'm not at disposal and I go to, the Red Barn versus Carrie Parcells' house and charge separately because I want to treat it differently because of the services, right? They should be charging on the services for pickup and the size of the container. But it should be all generators, mandatory recycling, bundled services. And there should be a fee schedule, and the fee schedule could start at $100, could be a warning letter, and it goes all the way up to after the fourth time, we terminate your contract and your permit for 1 year in the town of Eastham.
Can you talk to the health department about the one egregious operator that you keep seeing?
I mean,
Can we get that?
I don't know what they're gonna do about it, but.
Yeah.
I think Eastham has some language around hauler regulations in your Board of Health code. So I would check that out to see if there's actually an enforcement fee schedule. And that's probably public because your Board of Health regulations are usually,
Probably on the
you can
website.
find them. Yeah, it's probably on the website, or sometimes those regulations will live in like those big, annual town information guides that you give out at town hall when they come out.
But it's certainly something that could be discussed with the town. Recycling committee could decide that that was one thing that you want to work on next year. Regardless of what the end outcome is, but at least to pursue what are the health regulations? Should they be changed? What does the recycling committee suggest? What does the town?
But at this point, any hauler that commingles it is in violation of the.
Other waste bans, yeah.
Okay, all right.
They are in violation. There are 2 towns, so Nantucket has a hired recycling coordinator and a recycling manager. They've had them for about 4 or 5 years. They just put the position into 2 different positions because of the law. And Falmouth just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they implemented a part-time recycling coordinator that just went to full-time July 1st. So you can go to your, the select board and then ask town meeting, can we have segregated funds for either a part-time or a full-time enforcement coordinator? And so that person's job is solely to respond to the needs of your individuals that are calling and complaining, or somebody forgot to pick up my route, or I went to the transfer station and the lines were too long to get to the swap, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they can, in theory, be the one standing there at the transfer station enforcing different areas, whether it's the recycling center, the trash center. You can do that, but again, you'd have to find funds, and there are grants through DEP that can help set that up, but we're not going to forever pay for a position like that.
Yeah.
We want to set you up, and then
Right.
hopefully the town would move forward with the continuation.
Yeah.
But right now, there are other communities. Worcester has a, dedicated staff, Cambridge has dedicated staff, but we're talking cities.
Right.
But Nantucket and Falmouth have dedicated enforcement. Bourne has a dedicated enforcement person. He's their lead supervisor for their pickup route, because Bourne is a curbside community, even though they have a full service drop off. And so their lead trucking hauler is their enforcement coordinator, and he reports any curbside violations from residents using their address. And they reject loads. So if they don't like what they see at the load, they reject the load. They, record the address, and then they send that address a reason why their load wasn't picked up. So it's enforcement, whether it's rejection, a fee, a fine.
Is Nantucket single stream, like all the recyclables go in the same spot?
No, Nantucket has a mini MRF on island, so they have everything sort of source separated. So the cardboard goes into one, mixed paper, mail, that sort of stuff. Newspaper goes in one, and then so they have a pretty clean source separated, and then they have a big swap shop. In fact, if you ever want to watch something really funny about a swap shop, if you Google the Nantucket swap shop, there's a satire video. It's about 10 minutes long, but it is absolutely hilarious.
That sounds good, John.
And it was done by a professional production company, and it just really speaks to the level of like wealth and impatience and things that come through and greed. It's really, really funny.
Yeah, there's a whole set of stories there.
Yeah,
Truly.
Nantucket's is really funny.
Yeah.
That's
Well, one of our biggest issues with the haulers not separating or doing things because they don't hire somebody to separate it. So when they dump all the recyclables, even though they charge them $10 extra for the bin. They take all of it and dump it, and they just dump it in their loads because there's no one to separate it. So they're not gonna go show up in Eastham and pick out all the cardboard and pick out all.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking, because I know Wellfleet, right, is single stream, so they can put all the recyclables in one bin.
No, see,
it's
Truro is single stream. Yeah, so So the way that would work again is you would have to have these sort of mandated, recycling regulations. They're already in violation of the state's waste bans. So you can literally, if you wanted to, like, I'm kind of the trash Nazi at my condo. And sometimes I go out there and I'm like, you shouldn't be picking up that load via waistband TMR, I literally code it out to them. And they just think I'm nuts, but you can report that. And say that on this date at this time, this truck picked up this, and I happen to know that they're charging extra additional for the recycling, even though they're throwing it into a commingled bin. Now, some trash haulers have separate back hauls. So the front end might be recyclables and the back end, but you're seeing it go into one truck because you don't see that they're separated.
But it's sorted half and half kind of thing or something.
Yeah, it's like there's like divider. But
Yeah.
I just, and I feel bad too for the residents because they're trying to do well by recycling, but then it doesn't end up getting recycled because.
just to remind them, it's less expensive to buy a transfer station sticker and haul their own waste than it is.
Because of the,
It could be
it's the
yeah.
summer term.
No, I know.
It's the summer that usually does.
Yeah.
They don't even know because they're not here.
One question.
Yeah.
Sure. Do the haulers, do they have to put it at the transfer station of the town where they picked up the trash? So they can pick up in Redlands and dump it?
If the town allows it. So Wellfleet does not allow commercial haulers to come into their transfer station, so no commercial hauler will go over their scale. Eastham allows it, Harwich allows it, Chatham allows it, Bourne allows it, so there's
So
the
we might be
scale.
getting Wellfleet's trash.
Very well, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the.
Well, Wellfleet's recycling.
Yeah, so those commercial haulers, as long as there's a contract with the town. Like I said, they will go over the scale, there's a fee for that, and then, like, Harwich makes money off commercial haulers coming through their.
It does say in our charge, we have transfer station hauling costs. Would that include these costs?
Mhm.
So we have purview over those costs.
Well,
It
it's the
says that-
cost of hauling
This
it
is our
away
charter.
from.
This is our charter. This is, I mean, you should,
But it's not the haul, it's not the commercial. haul,
it says
not-
hauling costs and
But
residents.
But
it's
it's not
hauling
what-
from the transfer
Yeah.
station.
Oh,
to
yeah, okay, I would say we could just start charging them more if they come from out of county.
We haven't, I think, in recent years, been involved in those discussions.
I was going through it last week or last month or whatever, when I started doing the new charge for sustainability, and I was like thinking to myself, I don't know who any of the people I would need to even contact to manage these things are. At the time, just like,
Yeah.
who are these? He mentioned it too, like, who's the manager of the transfer station? Cause it sounds like it's you now.
No, Swan's not.
Swap, I'm sorry. Swap.
But I
Yeah,
think
I
this
mean,
is-
if the Board of Health is permitting the haulers, then they need to be regulating.
Gotcha.
It doesn't always happen that way. Boards of health are usually the same situation. They're understaffed, they don't have enough resources.
Right.
But between boards of health and the DPWs, those should be the enforcement people. And if the town so chooses, they can allocate funds to hire somebody part-time. Or
Okay.
full-time,
Or volunteer that might have a lot of regulatory background.
exactly.
Okay.
You want another hat?
I used to wear like 6 hats at every other job I have. I don't want to change it for this town. At least I'm working on the good guy side, so the bad guys.
guys that work. Very occasionally. At the transfer station. Sometimes like on weekends, there'll be somebody over at the trash place.
Right, they're fixing the machines or.
Oh, the solid waste part?
Yeah.
Compact.
And my gripe with that is, first of all, I don't understand, do they have any authority or are they just, I don't know what they're there to do.
They're there to, because the machines break often. They're there to make sure, because some things get dumped in, they get stuck, they unstick it. They're
And they
there
run
to
the
manage.
compactors on
They run
the
the, right, they
cardboard.
run the compactors, they get things unstuck.
All the
Yeah.
bailers.
They manage.
Yes, yeah.
But
They're not
they
there to
have-
tell you, don't do X, Y, and Z.
Do they not have any authority to do that or they just don't want to do that?
No
Have
idea.
to- that
Well, I'm
would be a
assuming
job.
their supervisor can tell them to do
Huh?
that. I'm assuming their
Yeah,
supervisor.
I don't know.
They
I don't know.
wanted
That
to.
would be a question for the DPW.
Because I mean, I have been behind somebody in line to get rid of everything that's not recyclable. And seeing people throwing cardboard willy-nilly into the hopper. And I will say, and I'll get out of my car and say to them, there's a recycling bin for that. And there's a big sign there that says, no cardboard.
Mhm.
And the guy that's working there says, I'll just throw it in there.
Well, then that, I mean, these are questions for John
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
So again, that's a violation of the waistband and that would be on the town of East Hampton. Because they're allowing it.
yeah.
Alright, sounds like we need someone hard nosed, I can do that. I have no job, I'll sit there all day and not see
You
people about
know,
what
the
they're putting in their box.
DPW is understaffed and perhaps that's one of the reasons for some of, but I don't know, and that would be.
That has-
Well, I don't know, so everything's
That
like
would be-
lots probably,
But
yeah.
it would be an important conversation to have and to set some expectations of structure going forward.
Yes.
You know.
We've been having that conversation since Sylvia.
for
That's
a
sort
long
of-
time.
Right.
On the other hand, one day I was there and there was a younger man working there. And I was down where the cardboard was, just trying to get the tape and all that stuff off, I read signs and take them seriously. And he made a big deal out of thanking me for doing that. It's good stuff. Right, but I see people throwing it in there with,
I like
That's
to
why-
keep all the styrofoam and packaging in my cardboard boxes.
why what? I want to put a big sign on the back of my car saying, got styrofoam? Take it to the package store, please.
Yeah, they
So,
recycle.
what other things should we be focusing on? Besides just, I mean, like, it's nice to focus on this waste stream
Yeah, this is. a great
misappropriation, but I don't wanna make that our whole goal, cause it could be a. Don Quixote tilting of windmills, cause there's not enough people to even do the thing we need done. I mean, that seems to be the bottleneck for most things here, it's like
Yeah.
not enough people. So what else thing, could we get a municipal bottle breaker program going on to recycle glass in a large quantity at a low cost?
I think Amy mentioned that we applied for a grant, didn't get it, maybe sometime in the recent past, but another town did. So I guess the question would be, maybe there's another grant to apply for next year or.
Yeah, so so the process glass aggregate, in 2018, the only processor for quality glass in the Commonwealth went under and they did it very, very quickly. So they put out a BUD, which is a beneficial use determination, because collating glass and turning it right back into glass is the first.
Yes, of course.
Right? So process glass aggregate is a beneficial use determination on another scale for using glass in, highway construction.
I was gonna say, could they
sewer.
not achieve the volume and cost?
Yeah, so, and then there's, mass dot regulation around it. You have to have it, cut down to, I think it's 3/8 minus. So the town of Dennis actually did it on a regional push, and for a long time, they were taking Mashpee's glass, Barnstable's glass, Wellfleet's glass, Harwich's glass. I think the town of Orleans was having conversations with them, Brewster. They gave them their glass, and so what they were doing at the time that there wasn't any glass processing facility was having a third-party vendor come in and crush it, and then they were selling it to either municipalities or the processed glass aggregate. I think Robert B. Auer at one point purchased some. In fact, I think the town of Orleans used some of it in their sewer project. Now that there are outlets for collated glass, because it's so clean and separated from the towns that drop in Dennis, and Eastham can choose to do this if they want, they just have
Yeah.
to talk to the town. Is they can take their glass there and it's picked up and taken to strategic materials in it's either Middleborough or Marlborough. And they cullet it and turn it back into glass. And ours is a high value because it's source separated, because it's not single stream glass, it's not mixed glass. Barnstable is kind of like the least clean. Every once in a while we'll see like picture frames or mirrors or you see like a blender, jar or whatever, because people think glass or crafts, like a toilet lid, something like that, or flatware. So things that aren't technically what they want, but it's for the most part, it's really, really clean. So strategic materials, it takes it at a very low.
I was thinking about going to for sand instead of going like aggregate gas product, going straight to sand, because erosion is a big issue here, and that would be a great way that New Orleans has.
Did that?
And New Orleans is doing it too. I went down
Yeah.
there after Katrina many times,
Yeah.
and they were doing a lot of recovery, and a lot of the groups I got involved with were
Yeah.
doing glass aggregate to prevent erosion, but then they were going a step further and going to sand. And then they were using it to make concrete at low cost to pave the bottom of the Mississippi. I don't know if you've ever seen, they drag these boats
Yeah.
with plates. And then they, and all that kind of works. I thought this place has a lot of those same problems. Why couldn't we do that? Or in theory, if flooding starts to become an issue, you have a large
Yeah.
group of sand for sandbags.
So with those regulations, I would probably follow up. I know the Army Corps of Engineers runs a lot of like the beaches, the bridges, that sort of stuff. Again, look at your local boards of health, things like that, any type of regulation through MassDOT on what can be laid out and what that sand, because there might be, regulations around not being able to do that in the Commonwealth, or maybe on like public beaches, but not private beaches.
Well,
Or like
nothing about
even if the-
beaches, more so like just
Sure, like erosion.
state
or even,
use, things like that.
dredging it in and.
Yeah, because the beach we have, the sand we have on our beach is not the same as the sand you get from bottles. It's a calcium carbonate blend versus a
Yeah.
silicon dioxide blend.
Yeah.
So I feel like it'd probably be better for state use, but like it just gives us a municipal source. I thought it'd be a great way to like save money because
Yeah.
we're not hauling it.
Yeah.
And then there's just like a large pile of sand municipally that we could use for snow or I don't know what you guys put down here. We put pickle brine in Pennsylvania. That's what they put on the roads.
Okay.
So like it's reused material, waste material sold to the state by farmers because I grew up from farm. And that's how they use a lot of the salts and stuff like that in the brines. But here I don't know what we do. So I
Yeah,
thought
there wasn't a
sand.
lot of pull on the process glass aggregate outside of it had to be 3/8 minus when they were, crushing it. But I don't know what the regulations are around sand or what its beneficial use would be at that sort of grain.
Gotcha.
But you can definitely find out either MassDOT, Army Corps of Engineers, just find out what the regulations are, and it's possible to do that. The problem tends to be is the feedstock. So sometimes the volume doesn't match a project, and so to get the amount of volume that you need sometimes becomes cost prohibitive.
I see what you're saying, like getting the bottles from further and further out comes costing
Yeah,
closer to ship them.
more you
And that's what I'm
get
trying to
in,
prevent in the first
the
place,
higher
which
the
is, yeah, I
cost.
see what you're saying. I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. I got you.
So
All right.
sometimes it becomes cost.
No, that's good
prohibitive and
information
it
to
can make it
have.
work, especially with volume and feedstock.
Yeah, no, that's really good information to have. Like I said, it was something I saw that was happening in New Orleans years ago, and then there was recently somebody shared an article about it again, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay.
Florida was doing it in a lot of theirs. They were actually putting it down on the beaches.
Oh, okay.
And it was a preventative measure, but because of like erosion and other things.
Yeah, of course.
But and there were no stories of like you're not cutting yourself, you're not. But
Exactly.
it is made out of a different chemical compound.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I thought that wouldn't really work for beaches, but more so like roadside projects, things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Trenching, so yeah.
And then what about like other things? What else do we look at? That's not, I don't want to bark up that tree if that's gonna be a dead end,
Are there any other courses? to Talk about.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. What else is going on?
Research has something caught your eye that you'd like to know more about, explore, as a.
I mean, are we revisiting digester at all?
Well, I think that is a good issue to talk about because a few years ago, Jackie expressed interest in that. But I've never gotten an answer to what may or may not be happening.
Oh,
I can't remember if it's Yarmouth or whoever.
Yeah, the town of Yarmouth. It's very hard to get an answer.
So they may or may not be doing something.
I'm not sure what that project is right now. I'm working with Joint Base Cape Cod and the 4 Upper Cape Towns on a coastal community composting project. We just I just reviewed some bids through an RFP that I put out through the county. So we just contracted with SCS Environmental. I email exchanged with my primary contact with them. So I'm the project manager, if you will, and they're going to assist me on sort of a continuation of a feasibility study on a grant that I received from a privately funded family foundation that I put in for through kind of like a birdie in my ear from the EPA saying, like, hey, you should do this. So I did, and I won, and yay. So they came in under bid, so I have a little bit of wiggle room on my budget to do that. And there's been conversations with General Foe and the adjutant on Joint Base about some property that might be available outside of first right of refusal with mass development. Because they want to work on affordable housing and, building community out on the base with some of the excess pieces of parcels of land that they're doing a divestiture with. But there are 3 identified spots around the transfer station out there that is leased and operated by Kubosa. Not that we would want to use the rail line or their transfer station, but it's out of the way of what potentially could be housing. And we want to be considerate of housing and DEI and low income and military veterans, things like that. So there might be an opportunity for a mobile pilot program where we figure out lease or ownership of the land or transference of that land, and then whether or not who would have ownership, and then who would put out an RFP or a bid for a pilot operation that would be a mobile facility until something more permanent is decided.
So would it be more like a digester type thing, or would it be more
It would
like?
be
an
more, it
open
would be more covered static piles.
Covered, yeah.
Again, for,
Mhm.
vector, odor, that sort of thing. This study hopefully will tell us whether or not there are parcels of land, how much feedstock we would need. I think if we built something, even though it's really identifying the 4 Upper Cape towns, and the tribe, as well as, potentially Barnstable, I think a lot of the feedstock, once it's built, if we have a 20+ acre parcel, once the infrastructure and the building and the site design is there, and we acknowledge the legal and ownership of the parcel of land that's been divested to the project. I think other feedstock, i.e. Provincetown, Wellfleet, Eastham, or Lee, it's gonna start pushing its way up, because whoever is operating that ideally will have trucking, and they'll be the ones
And they'll
going
come
around
pick it all up.
collecting. Exactly.
So we could just transfer from Black Earth to,
Possibly.
that.
To whoever is bidding. I mean, if you talk to Phil Goddard, he drops Black Earth all the time. Just because they're sort of they're kind of running most of the
Right,
the Cape collection now, but they're also driving it to Manchester.
right, so they can drive it, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and they've talked about wanting to be on the Cape, but again, my primary role with this is to continue looking at site design, the legal piece of transfer of parcels with Joint Base Cape Cod, land use, electricity, environmental pieces. And those are things that are outside of my particular expertise. So this is where this gentleman, his name is Greg McCannon, he reached out to me, and he's been doing this as an expert for 35 years in an engineering firm. And that's his specialty. So I'm really excited to work with them. Once the contract is signed, he immediately gave me a phone call as a point of contact. So, but I do think that if we get to that point where we're ready to start, shovel in the ground, and have somebody who's gonna lease operate the facility, I do think that the feedstock will come from more than just upper mid Cape. I think it's gonna trickle down, and if it works, then we're gonna start looking at another sub-regional site, mid Cape, and then again, maybe potentially lower Cape. And those might be just smaller facilities, because the feedstock itself is not, the season, obviously, but.
So the committee could talk with Jackie and others, and probably not necessarily her, but whoever on the town, as they're building the new sewer plant, would be the time to have that conversation with, I don't know if it's public health or who was spearheading that part of that project, but with those people about costs, feasibility. I mean, the pro would be having it here in Eastham, and other towns might bring things, but everybody's already it would have to be cost effective, because people are already paying Black Earth now. It would have to be cheaper.
Right.
Or it would have to be a benefit.
Yeah, I mean,
So
several years ago, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Several years ago, Brewster Sand and Gravel had identified a parcel of land here in Eastham. I don't know where it was, but they owned it. But at the same time, the owner of Brewster Sand and Gravel was trying to make a sale of the business. And so they were worried that if they had put a composting site on that piece of land, then anybody looking to purchase the business would not want to have to manage an open, active composting site on a property of land that would come with the Brewster Sand and Gravel itself. But I had a conversation, so I don't think it's unreasonable that Eastham could be a site for a smaller sub-regional facility that services the community here. And then, I don't know if it's lower Cape and I'm outer Cape, or is I'm lower Cape, they're outer Cape. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I'm in shadow. Am I outer? Or am I just lower? I always confuse it. Get it wrong. But there've been a lot of conversations around it, but this is a real big first step as far as identifying probable parcels of land, seeing that there's a divestiture of excess parcels, working potentially around mass development and their first right of refusal for those parcels, and maybe identifying pilot programs. And it's all like a big question mark, but the conversation is happening in a very real positive direction. And now that we have somebody that can help us determine whether or not these sites are feasible for a site, and we're calling it a coastal community composting project, because that's what we are.
Yeah, I don't know if Brewster Sand and Gravel changed hands or not, but they do have a big property, so.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever
Future
did or
question.
not,
Yeah.
but
Future
somebody
question.
reached out and there was interest. Yeah, that's the site that they were speaking of. But again, the person that inquired was not necessarily like a decision maker. But it was something that she had said that she had had conversations with the owner. But again, there was some hesitation because there was
Right,
potential to sell, and I honestly have no
Yeah.
idea if that ever happened or not. But then, everything kind of shut down, 2020 to like just recently.
right, yeah.
So all conversations kind of halted for a little while.
Does something
Well,
like
we-
that need to get in on the ground floor in terms of talking about town sewer and all of that sort of thing?
Not necessarily, but you need to make sure that the land space that's available for a project of like a commercial size like that, you would make sure that the permitting and the regulations fit the land that you've picked out as far as, water, electricity, marshland, conservation space, awareness around dwellings, things like that. So, and there are people out there that once we identify a site and say, hey, we'd like to do this, people will come out and provide assistance to do that.
The second town well is close to that property, so that could be an issue
Could be, yeah.
or not. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, they would have to figure that all
Yeah.
out.
And that stuff is like well beyond my expertise.
Right, I don't
so.
know. And the
Yeah.
wells are deep and, so for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's certain things which is, at a transfer station, it can't be within 100 feet there, it can't do
Yeah.
this and da. But that's just stuff that I've, picked up along the way, but I certainly couldn't go out to a site and really assess the feasibility of a permanent commercial size site. I wouldn't know how much feedstock makes this many yards. I don't know how much electricity it was to manage this or, the curing process, the cooking process, the covering process. But I could say like, oh, open windrows or, oh, covered static area piles. I know that stuff, but I couldn't go out and say, hey, this is what you need to do.
Right.
That's why I hired a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I got grant funds to hire somebody to help me.
Well, I think there's some really good ideas on the table. Certainly at the next meeting and forward, these conversations can continue, but at least there's a few places to start.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about rewriting the charge around sustainability too. Are there any last thoughts or concerns before we officially close the meeting?
I do want to,
Right.
I was gonna say, I do want to add some of the active committees on the Cape have me show up to their meetings every month. Some just do it invitationally. Some don't ever ask me any questions. Okay. So that's up to you as the chairs. If you're like, hey, we really want her for a while to show up every month, or hey, we don't need her, or by invitation, don't hesitate to ever invite me to a meeting. Because if I can show up, I will. So like Yarmouth, the Wellfleet, I show up to all of those every single month. I get all of their notes, everything. And then, like I said, some communities, they do it as like a needed basis.
Okay,
Great.
here's my
Yeah.
contact info.
All right, I'll send you an email then. Yeah.
Are gonna be part of it.
Yes, that's good. Perfect, thank you. That's great. And Molly, you,
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to you and to Karen.
Second.
We wouldn't be
Yeah.
where we are
Yeah.
having these conversations without the two of you in the mix. And
Really.
I'm going to personally miss both of you. Thank you.
thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's been my,
You guys are in still.
it's been my pleasure to be on the board for 2 years and the chair of this last year. It's been a great year. I mean, we've accomplished a lot with moving on the composting. We had the home composting workshop. We had our big forum in April that Carrie was a part of, which was very successful, and on single-use plastics. And there's a lot of great ideas on the table. So I'm around for questions or
You too.
reaching out.
I'm around for helping.
Sure.
So happy to continue help, and I may pop in every once in a while.
Hope
too.
so.
So,
I was gonna say, I have a feeling when I see these active committee members and they're like, oh, I've served my time. I'm like, we'll see you back.
we will see you back.
We'll see you all around.
Just the community members. Well, thank you, everyone. And the next meeting will be here at the town hall, Tuesday, August 20th, at our usual time at 5 p.m. So,
And special
Thank you.
thanks to Carrie.
thank you.
for-
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Explain here.
Yep.